All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this out-of-state student panel. My name is Amanda Ewing. I use she, her pronouns. I am an assistant director in the Office of New Student Programs and the director of the Educational Theater Company. And I'll be your facilitator for this conversation today. So as you can all see, we have a bunch of students with us on this call that are going to answer our questions. I have some questions for you all, but for our incoming students joining us, please know that throughout this conversation, you can always use the Q&A function if you have any particular questions, and we will try to answer as many of them as we can. So we're going to go ahead and jump in with introductions. And I've got Molly's at the top of my screen. So Molly, why don't you go first?
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Molly. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a rising sophomore at the Stamp School of Art and Design. So that's on North Campus. I love North Campus. And I'm originally from a suburb just outside of Pittsburgh. So only about a 4-hour drive, not too bad. And I'll pass it on to Katie.
Thank you, Molly. But yeah, my name is Katie. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm a BA junior in nursing in the fall, which is so exciting, halfway done. And I am from McKinney, Texas, which is kind of by Dallas. So I'm here to represent some of the warmer climates and maybe how that can be a challenge. But I don't know, I love it here. And I'm gonna pass it on to Tommy.
Hi everyone, my name is Tommy. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I'm a senior in the College of Alisane studying philosophy, and I am from the DC, Maryland, and Virginia areas, so on the East Coast. And I will pass it to Emma.
Hey, I'm Emma. I use they, them pronouns. I am a psychology and sociology major that's in LSA, rising junior. And hometown is a tough question for me because I've moved around a lot, but I most recently lived in Champaign, Illinois. I will pass it to Iman.
So my name is Iman. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am a rising sophomore in LSA studying computer science. And when it comes to hometown, I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri, but I am calling in from Washington, D.C., which is like a second home for me. So and I'll pass it on to Lita.
Hi, I'm Lita. I'm from Camarillo, California, so about an hour north of Los Angeles, right on the coast. I'm like 6 miles from the beach, something like that. I am a rising sophomore in LSA, currently undeclared, but probably going to major in biopsychology, cognition, and neuroscience, considering a pre-dental track, also considering a pre-law track, as well as potentially a political science second major.
And that's all of us. Thanks y'all for introducing yourselves. So to start, let's start with what were some of your biggest concerns about adjusting to life in Michigan, and how did you address them? And we won't wait for everybody to answer. We'll sort of jump in and see who would like to answer the questions and then move on to the next one if we feel like we've covered everything. So again, what were your biggest concerns about adjusting to life in Michigan, and how did you address them?
I think I could definitely start. St. Louis is like, it's kind of a big city, but specifically my high school was kind of small. So I think my biggest concern was how to go from a somewhat smaller high school to like, a huge public university, I would say. And then I think the way that I addressed that was definitely just clubs and student orgs. I would say that like 10 times makes everything seem smaller, so that huge change was just definitely much easier once I found a club to be a part of and a student org to be a part of. But yeah, I think that was probably my biggest concern, but don't worry.
I think a really big concern I had coming into Michigan was just finding a group of people that I would feel comfortable being around, just a group of friends, because as far as I know, I was the only person from my high school going to Michigan, so it was a completely fresh start for me. But what I found really helpful was just getting comfortable talking to everybody. And even if conversations don't go anywhere, at least you introduced yourself. And the person who was sitting next to me in a lecture who I just turned around and said hi to ended up becoming my best friend and is still my best friend almost 4 years later. So that would be my advice. Just talk to a lot of people and don't worry if it doesn't work out in the first place.
This might sound kind of shallow, but honestly, one of my biggest concerns was like food. So moving from like the south to the north, there's definitely a lot of cultural differences, you know, like saying good morning to strangers. And like, I knew that I probably wasn't going to get like as good of like tacos or biscuits and gravy up here. So I was definitely a little bit afraid of that. I'm also a religious person. I know that oftentimes religious practices can be different depending on the region of the country. So I was kind of nervous about finding my niche and like maybe finding things that could remind me of home. And so some of the things that I did were honestly like I would ask everyone, where are you from? And then when I would find people who are from like similar areas of me, I would be like, oh my gosh, you know, let's talk about that a little bit more, because like homesickness needs to totally be normalized. And I think that pretty much everyone feels that, even if they're just like moving from their parents' house in Ann Arbor to a dorm. So like I just like having conversations about that, I think made me feel a lot better. Also, like Ann Arbor is such a fun place to be. It's such a diverse city that like honestly probably you could find food that suits your like home preferences. I did find some Mexican food that I really liked here. Chela's is a really good place to go. But I don't know, that also really helped. And then I would totally second what Amon said, joining clubs. Like I joined a religious group that I liked, and just I don't know, like finding ways to establish a place for yourself here, to like have people that will smile at you when you walk past them on campus or whatever, really makes things feel like a lot more home-like, I think.
Yeah, I'll tell you that like I came from like a smaller and newer school. I'm the first person from my high school to ever go to Michigan. And I'm the second person from my high school to ever go to the Midwest. And like something, so my class was like, we had a big theater program, and like something like 60% of my school identified as queer. And I like a lot of my friends like teased me. They're like, if you go to Michigan, you're never gonna find another queer person. Like you're gonna be an outcast. And I was like I kind of thought that like obviously I know that that's not true, but like they said it so many times that I was like, oh my God, like Michigan is like the middle of the Midwest. Like, and my friends would literally pull up like the demographic charts and be like, look, everyone is white. And it was just like so different from home. But I got to Ann Arbor and like that was not the case. And like yeah, I definitely found my people, and like I found there are tons of organizations for people of like every background, and if there's not, you can start one, and I'm sure that like a bunch of people will join it. Yeah, but don't like freak out about stuff like that. Like that was not really a concern for me until I let my friends keep saying it, and then I started freaking out about it. But yeah, definitely like I found my people on campus, and like you know, you walk down State Street and you see like the rainbow colored doors at the church and like stuff like that. And like I definitely feel very comfortable and at home in Ann Arbor.
I think for myself, the biggest concern about adjusting was that I wouldn't be able to adjust, and I wouldn't be able to find my place. And you know, it is a large university. I don't know if you've noticed that or not, but I figured out that like to make a large school smaller, you have to find those communities that you're part of. Just as Katie and Amon had said, like it's finding those smaller groups that you connect with. And I think for myself, I found the most connection by joining a Michigan learning community. So actually living with a group of people with similar interests to mine allowed me to kind of have like that forced interaction at the very beginning, and allowed me to really like step out of my comfort zone when it actually came to finding people that I really, you know, vibed with.
Thanks, everybody. These are some great answers. And I'm really glad that you all have found ways to adjust to some of those concerns. I know it probably makes people feel a lot better. I'm going to go to, what was your biggest shock in being far away from home?
I can answer this one.
Mhm.
So I was off the bat pretty shocked at how supported I felt. I think this institution is very much set up to support its students. Millions of students have passed through this campus. If you have a problem, another student has probably had the exact same problem, and there's probably a whole office dedicated to solving that kind of problem. To be honest, initially my resource exploration began as like, this school is really expensive and I want to get my money's worth. So like I sought out resources almost out of spite, but then it turned into like okay, thank you, Dean of Students, for helping me with that housemate conflict. And like, thank you, Wolverine Wellness, for helping me find a career path I'm interested in. So I want to acknowledge that like seeking out resources is work and it's emotional energy, but in my experience, it really has been worth it.
Thanks, Emma. I think that's great. U of M is definitely a resource-rich environment, and you can find what you need, or find someone who can connect you to something that you need. Nita, I saw you unmute.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I was surprised at how like I didn't miss like home that much, but I missed being somewhere where I knew, like, where I was familiar with the area. Like, it was really weird for me to be in a place where I knew nobody, didn't know like where anything was. And like I just like people kept pointing at their hands to say where they were from. And like I know this is like super weird, and like at first it was like kind of funny, but like after I was like, everybody like kind of speaks this language that I don't really feel like I speak. Like they're all talking about like going to like Kroger, and I'm like, I kind of know what that is. Like I don't know, it was just like, it was weird to kind of like feel like I fit in, because they're talking about all these experiences that I didn't feel like I could share. But then I realized like when I was talking to people, like they liked when I was like, oh yeah, like we don't have that. Like I've never had a fried pickle ever. They like, Freddie found that so funny this morning that I like, yeah. So I kind of carved out a niche as like the weird Californian, and it's working pretty well for me. And they're teaching me a lot about like Midwestern culture.
Biggest shock for me, and this is going to sound really dumb, but it was how many people hold up the hand and point to where they are in Michigan. And I'm like, I don't even know, like, what, I didn't even remember where Ann Arbor was. How am I supposed to know where all these places are? And I think like, because I'm definitely not street smart, definitely book smart, it was very difficult to like have this sense of belonging in a location I knew nothing about. And then everyone was adding these cities on. And I just felt like there was this expectation of I was supposed to know when to get off the bus and stuff like that. But I realized it's okay to get lost. It helped you learn.
Something that was shocking for me was definitely the weather. So even in like the early fall, late summer, like when we start, I remember being shocked that like it would get cold at night, because like I didn't really experience that growing up. So like having to carry a jacket in your backpack was such a weird experience for me. And then of course like the shock expanded when winter came around. Like I remember we got our first snow in my freshman year on Halloween, and I was like, guys, it's not even like October's not over yet. Like winter's not supposed to be happening. But honestly, I do really like the winter though, so it ended up being okay once I got used to it. But definitely a shock.
Yeah, while we're on the weather, there is a question in our Q&A that says, for an incoming Angelino freshman who doesn't even own a coat, what types of clothes should she get in order to survive the winter? So just also like clothes, but also like generally, can you tell our friends from warmer climates how you adjusted to Michigan? Which it's like 90 degrees today, but like it's not like this all year round.
Yeah, honestly, I think the best way to go like survive the cold is to go in with good gear and a good attitude. So good gear, like honestly, you don't need a very fancy coat, but you know, something that's waterproof, not water resistant. That would be my suggestion. And then also just like layers. So like stuff like sweatshirts, sweatpants, leggings to put under sweatpants for when the wind is especially blustery. those are the kind of things like you'll figure out what you like what suits you and your like temperature preferences best. But then honestly, the good attitude is also a huge thing. Like, you know, something that I learned is that like they keep the buildings so hot here in the winter. Like I'm like peeling off my coat when I get into the lecture hall and everything. So like I would be like, okay, appreciate this warmth, then go outside and appreciate the cold before I go back in to be sweating, you know. Like just never having the expectation that I would have to be like freezing my butt off all day, every day. That it's more of just like a transient process, I think like helped me be okay with being outside when I did have to be. But yeah, definitely get a coat, some good socks, and a scarf.
I think one of the things that I appreciated most after experiencing winter in Michigan was having just a nice pair of boots, specifically ones that are waterproof and have good traction, because sometimes the sidewalks or the roads in the winter can get kind of icy, and so you don't want to be slipping out on your way to class. And also when the snow starts to melt, it can get very mushy as well, so having it be waterproof is another plus because it's not fun walking into an 8 a.m. lecture with soggy feet, so highly recommend a good pair of boots.
Yeah, I definitely second the boots thing too. The amount of people who like sprain their ankles in the winter from like slipping on ice is kind of unfortunate. I have to say, I've been there. Wearing like a boot in the winter also isn't fun just because like the slush that Tommy mentioned. So good boots are definitely a must as well.
Anybody else with winter weather tips? Okay, great. There is a question here about, did any of you come from big families? And if so, how did you adjust to suddenly being on your own?
I came from a pretty big family. I have three brothers, one who is a twin. So that was definitely a change, not being with him all the time. We both went to different schools in different directions. So that was definitely difficult. I also have three Bernese Mountain Dogs, and they are like my children. I love them so much. It's hard not having like a pet, especially when you're used to having one for so long. But the thing that really helped me get adjusted to being alone a lot more of the time was having pictures of my family around. So even just having one on your desk, it's just so nice to, look over and see it and know that like you have that. And I also like got a blanket that had my dog on it, which allowed me to like just snuggle up with it and everything. It sounds weird, but it's pretty nice. But another really great resource is just phone calls and FaceTime. Like when you call your parents, like it's so nice because you haven't talked to them a couple of days and you don't realize like how much you've actually done in like 48 hours, but you realize it when you've hung up the phone and it's been 2 hours. So I think like staying in contact pretty frequently is really great to kind of bridge that gap of distance, but definitely not like forgetting about like where you've come from and like who's there to support you this whole time.
I can also speak to this question. This is a really great question. I'm an older sibling. I'm the oldest. So I have a younger sibling at home. And I was surprised at how guilty I felt leaving her, which I think is common, especially for older siblings. I think there's a lot of protectiveness there, especially if home or family is a little complicated. So going to college, especially out of state, kind of for me felt like I was leaving her behind. So I think Molly's advice to keep in contact is a great thing. And I also love to feel like I was starting to experience things so I could go back and tell her and make all of the mistakes so she wouldn't have to. And now she's going to college this year, and I feel like my experiences have definitely helped prepare her. And she's very excited now.
I totally vibe with that, Emma. I have two younger brothers. I'm the big older sister. Even when it comes to cousins, I'm like the oldest. Something that I actually really got into was like sending packages and letters. So it's really easy in the dorms, like for me to just send a letter or to get a letter. With my friends, we sent care packages to each other. And my mother, she sent me like this tea, specific tea that we only have in the house that you can only get from Tanzania, which my mother's from, that sort of thing. Like those small things that I did to like stay in contact via the old fashioned writing letters was actually really nice and something that I can kind of keep and look back at. So that was something I loved, especially since I'm terrible at answering the phone. So everybody's like, answer the phone. It's like, it's okay, just send me a letter. I'll see the letter. But I loved that. So I think that helped me for sure.
I think this is great. Are there any other ways that people work to stay connected to family and friends while you're at school?
Something that really helped me was scheduling times, so like getting in the routine of being in contact with people, just because I'm the kind of person where like there are so many things going on the college campus at any given time, that sometimes it's difficult for me to remember to like maintain my roots. So like I would call my parents every Sunday night, and then like I would have like FaceTimes with my friends like every other Wednesday or whatever. And I think that like, you know, obviously like other people have mentioned like how great like social media and everything can be, just like in keeping up with your friends and everything. But like, I don't know, I think for me, like the schedule of it all was, it made up for like, I don't know, like when you're like living in the same house as your family, you have like all that incidental contact, you know, you're just like running into each other in the hallway, like, hey, what's up, you know? And so I feel like scheduling kind of helped me replace that I lost, you know?
Going off of that super quickly, you're going to be walking if you're on campus, which I hope a lot of you are. That's so exciting to think about. But you're going to be walking to classes, to and from classes, and you'll probably develop like a walk and a path that maybe you'll take every Tuesday and Thursday to this specific class. So I got in the habit of calling my sister on the walk to the class. It's like twice a week. And it's only like 15 minutes, but it's a great moment in your day, kind of built in to catch up and connect, and then go to your next class.
These are some beautiful rituals, y'all. I love this. Anybody else before I move on to another one of our questions? Cool. Oh, I love this question. I'm really excited about this question. What did you bring or purchase that you never used? This is really fun. And then it also says, what did you not have when you arrived that you wish you did?
I can start on this one. So for whatever reason, freshman me decided to bring a bunch of I guess like yearbooks and a lot of memorabilia about home. And I think that that does have an important place in your freshman dorm or wherever you're going to be your first year, just because being out of state is a really huge transition. But I brought way too much stuff. I still have this really thick yearbook from my senior year that I do look through now and then, but it just becomes something that I have kind of been taking from place to place. And so I would just be very conscious and intentional about how much space the stuff that you're bringing will take up in your dorm. And also, I think hopefully by now you all have some information on what your dorm size is going to be like, or maybe you've been in contact with your roommate. And so just kind of figuring out what type of space you're going to be having and what you might want to bring for that.
Crazy enough, mine definitely connects in the sense of books. I'm a huge reader, so I thought, oh, I should totally bring books because I'm going to want to reread them. I had an entire shelf of books. I think I brought like 12 books to Michigan, all of these heavy and unimportant, and I did not read a single book that I brought. So I definitely would say that's something I definitely regret because I did, like Tommy, have to lug that around. When I moved out, I was like, this is a hassle, and it's 50 pounds of stuff I didn't read. So that was unfortunate. Make sure if you're a bookworm like me, no, you don't have to bring those books that you think you might reread.
I think, well, so I moved via airplane, so I wasn't really able to have the luxury of overpacking because I just had like my 2 checked bags, you know. But I think most of the stuff that I brought that I didn't end up using were like clothing items. So I brought a lot of clothes that I never ended up wearing. Like I kind of just got into my routine of wearing like the same sweatpants and sweatshirts to class. You know, like you don't really have a whole lot of occasions to like dress up. And then like also, you know, in college you don't want to have to be doing your laundry all the time. So it would be like a lot of like just like re-wearing the same kind of casual clothes and everything. And then also like you get a ton of free t-shirts just from being a college student. And so like your wardrobe will definitely expand when you get here. So maybe like kind of pack with that in mind. And then something that I wish that I had had right away when I got in a dorm was probably like a fan. So I didn't have my fan right away, but I do wish that that had been like the first thing that I picked up because it does get a little steamy in the dorm rooms during move-in. You know, like not all the dorms have air conditioning, and usually that's not a problem. But like the last week of August, it definitely can be. So I would definitely put that on your shopping list.
For some reason, I brought like 4 different blankets with me. In Michigan, you do not need those, especially when there's heat in, in the residence halls in the winter. And obviously, the summer is a little steamy. But, you know, only 1 blanket is gonna, you know, you're gonna be fine with just 1 blanket because they just, that one of them I don't think I even unwrapped from the packaging, but that would definitely be my advice.
I am definitely like more on the minimalist side. I like refuse to bring something if it doesn't like have a function. So like I didn't have like a lot of like random stuff that I was very like intentional about what I brought, but I brought like other appliances for my dorm that I used, but I never used the little blender that I bought. And like for some reason, my mom like went and bought me a bunch of like frozen fruit to do smoothies with, and that also sat in my freezer for the entire semester. The one thing I did forget to bring though, for like I forgot to bring like a little bit of like dish soap and like Windex, and that was a problem that I needed to remedy immediately.
Yeah, it sounds like we're also thinking about like how we're packing to move to Michigan, and about this air travel piece. Can you talk about like how you got to Michigan? How'd you move? If you fly, how did you get all your stuff to and from campus? Try to give us a little bit more information about that, like actual logistical, I have to get from here to here part.
So for me, what it looked like was using space bags to put all of my clothes and like my carry-ons and things like that. So like you can get those for like real cheap on like Amazon or at Walmart or whatever. And those like help immensely, especially with the winter clothes, like, you know, the things that are so bulky. And then I placed online orders to like pick up. So like we did one at like Bed Bath and Beyond, one at like IKEA, and then one at Target. And you can usually place those like a week in advance or whatever. So that we like flew in and we got a rental car and kind of drove and like picked all those things up, and then like moved them into the dorm from there. But it did take a little bit of planning to kind of like price compare and everything. And it was a lot of like delayed gratification as well, where like I would see something and be like, oh, I want that for my dorm, like that looks super handy, but I'll have to like save that and like write it down on my list. And then also I can mention that you know, you don't have to get like for when you like maybe go back to visit your family or whatever, you don't have to like get a rental car or anything like that. There is a bus that the Ann Arbor City transportation system, the ride, offers to the airport and back. It's like $12 ticket, so it's like way cheaper than an Uber. But that is like pretty much what I did on breaks too. And then when I moved out, I just got a storage unit for the things that I didn't end up like selling to other like more of the incoming freshmen. You can pass down some of your dorm items, but that was kind of like what my transportation looked like.
I was lucky. I'm lucky enough to have family in Chicago. So the first time I flew out from LA to Chicago, and I had two checked suitcases, and then I had like pre-shipped a bunch of stuff to my aunt's house. It actually wasn't too much, like, and then we just rented like a big I think it was like a Tahoe, and we put all that stuff in the back and drove it to Ann Arbor. But this in a couple of weeks I'm actually driving to Ann Arbor with a bunch of stuff. So that will be interesting. And then in terms of like what I do on breaks, Ann Arbor has a like a train station right on campus, which is super nice. So I like often just take the train to Chicago, but the airport's also like 20 minutes away. So I have like I went home for a little bit during the first semester, and I just well, because there was no air thing because it wasn't like a break yet, but I took an Uber and just hopped on a plane from the airport.
When it comes to going to University of Michigan, like I did fly and I had like 3 people with me. So they all had suitcases full of my stuff because I am a terrible overpacker. So that's what they did. And great, thankfully they could just, take their suitcases back with them. So I didn't have like suitcases in my dorm or anything like that. But something else I did was I did use John's Pack and Ship, which is a company that goes through University of Michigan. I sent like 2 pack because it does get expensive. It racks up, but it's because when you're sending stuff to University of Michigan ahead of time, you have to use John's Pack and Ship because you can't send it directly to your dorm. They won't accept it. The mailing room isn't open before the semester starts. So yeah, I use John's Pack and Ship, and what's great about them is they like put it in your dorm room before you even get on campus. So all of the stuff that I sent, thankfully, was just right there when I opened the door. So I don't say send like 10 packages because that's going to take like thousands of dollars. I mean, if you have two packages, it's actually kind of nice, and it's just right there when you get there. So it wasn't too bad.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all. Imana, I was an international student for graduate school, and I totally put all of my stuff in my mom's suitcase. And I was like, I don't know how you're gonna get by, but it'll be fine. I love that. So how about what do you all miss about home when you're on campus? And what do you do to address that?
I think one of the biggest things besides like family and friends, I really missed my own bed. I will say that the beds like in the dorm rooms are not like I've been to other colleges and slept there, and like they have been horrible experiences, but I would actually say like some nights I would prefer to be in my Michigan bed than my bed at home. But I think that just like the sense of like having the home feeling is lacking when you're in a dorm room. So I think the best way to kind of get rid of that is to kind of personalize the bed or personalize like where you're living. So putting up like posters, or like choosing a really cool like bedspread just allows you to like feel like this isn't just a dorm room bed, this is my bed, like this is my bed at school. And I think that like allowed me to sleep a lot better at night. I know it sounds weird, but like just like feeling like I wasn't like in a random room. It really felt like this is like my home away from home. Really like helped me a lot.
I'm gonna absolutely second the bed thing. That was the first thing that came to my mind when I heard this question. My bed at school, my mom I let my mom be too involved in that. Like I didn't care enough and she was bothering me. So I was like, okay, I'll just get whatever. And she made me get this like weird organic like mattress pad and like weird organic sheets. And like I didn't want her involved in the pillows. So I just got like cheap pillows from Target. And my bed was not comfortable. Like I should have like invested a little bit more money and time into that. Because like I did not sleep that well for like the first month at school. um, but yeah, I just like I got like different fabric softener and like stuff like that. But like I should have just thrown my mattress pad away. Um, and then the other thing is like I don't know, something that was really weird. Because like I don't even go to the beach that often, but like I started to really miss the ocean. And there's not that much you can do about that. Like I walked in the Arbor a few times, like next to the Huron River. And then that worked a little bit. But then I watched The Shallows, which is like a bad, like kind of like Jaws concept. And that made me not miss the ocean as much. So there was that.
I think, oh, sorry, you can go ahead, Tommy.
Something that I really ended up missing was just food, whether it's a home cooked meal or just certain snacks or foods that you just can't get around Ann Arbor. Um, yeah, like there were certain Korean snacks that were very easy to access back at home, but here in Ann Arbor, being a student without a car, it can be very difficult to go out and go to the certain stores that have those things. And so something that my mom ended up doing was every now and then she would surprise me with a care package just filled with all of the snacks and stuff that I missed. And just for a while, maybe like a few days, because I'd finished them really quickly, I would just kind of get that taste of home. And so that was kind of my workaround for that.
Something that I missed a lot about being from home is like kind of a little more abstract. Like I feel like I missed like going to bed and like waking up being excited to like see my sister or whatever, like knowing that there's people who like love and care about you in the next room or whatever. And so I think part of the way that I deal with that is like obviously you can't really replace like living with your family or whatever if you have a good relationship with them. But I tried to like really get involved in my dorm. So I like we got on a group chat with like all the girls who lived in my hallway. So that way we were able to like share meals too, be like, hey, I'm going to the dining hall. Anyone want to come with? You leaving your door open so that when people would get back from class, there would be like I'd get back from like a long day at school and people would be like, Katie, you're home. And like that just like made my heart feel so warm. And like I got involved in my hall council. So every dorm has a hall council that like plans events for like community building kind of things. And so that made me feel like I was contributing to where I lived too. So like that kind of made the building that I live in feel less just like the building that I live in and more like home away from home. Like I really felt like it was important for me to get to know people who like lived in and are like around the building that I was in. I think that helped me a lot.
Great, thanks, y'all. I'm looking at some of these questions. I think a little bit, just a question about like travel around campus, getting to places like stores, grocery stores, like where to get some of the things, like if you're choosing to buy things when you arrive, where would you get that? And how would you get to and from?
I did like I wanted to have my own groceries like a lot of the time, even though dining hall food was absolutely fantastic. Like, and Ann Arbor has so many great restaurants. Like, I rarely ate out. When I did, it was fantastic. But I like to have like my own snacks and stuff like that. Um, yeah. So the buses are great. The buses will get you to a bunch of stores, including like Whole Foods and Trader Joe's, or at least they're the ones that like I'm familiar with. But I think they also go to Kroger. And they're like there's like a Walgreens and stuff on State Street. But I had a bike, which was really great, and I wish I had like a rack on my bike. I think I'm gonna put that on when I go back. But Yeah, I'd just take my bike and like a backpack and I'd go to like Whole Foods or something and grab groceries. After a while, that got to be like a little bit time consuming. So I started just like ordering groceries, like especially from Whole Foods, you could just order on Amazon and they'll deliver them. That was pretty convenient. But yeah, it unfortunately we don't have like a Target or something really close to campus like some other places do, but like I feel like the buses do give you pretty good access to the stores and stuff. And I believe that another orientation leader mentioned that the first couple weeks of school, typically they do the buses run like a Kroger route where they constantly like run back and forth to Kroger just for Michigan students. And then like during that time, Kroger has a bunch of deals. I have not experienced that, but that's something I heard about.
Yeah, you do say that there's not a Target near campus, but they're actually opening one right off of the Diag. They're opening like a mini Target. So that's going to be like super handy for you guys when you're moving in and everything. But yeah, typically Meyer will host like a back to school kind of event as well. So if you're not from the Midwest, I did not know what Meyer was. It's just kind of like a Target, but Midwest version. And they'll
Actually, Katie, the Meyer event is not happening this year.
Oh no. Well, I guess anyways, there are a ton of grocery stores in Ann Arbor and you can just like look up the bus routes on theride.com like Lita was mentioning. But yeah, the delivery thing is also a really great strategy, honestly.
Yeah, about once a month, I would get groceries just delivered, just to make sure, like with my schedule and everything, I could, be there and stuff like that. So I didn't have to take time out of like studying or doing things like that. But if I needed something like just small, I would usually just like take a weekend trip to like Central Campus with my roommate, and we would just like pick up some stuff at like CVS. And like that kind of created like it made it into an event, which was also nice, especially during COVID and everything. We'd be like, we're going on a field trip today. But yeah, I feel like ideally I would love a Costco to be like right next to campus. But no, it's not happening. I can only dream. But I think like bulking up on things that you can, like frozen items, is nice. And then like needing to go to the store as needed. So not like running out of things every day.
I just wanted to add real quick, like, yeah, bulking up on items can be really great. I have some like weird food preferences. Like there's this one drink that it's like a sparkling water drink that I will go through cans of a day. And I also like this ramen that they make like fresh in New York. So I had that stuff like shipped to the dorms a bunch, and like that was super easy too. So like all the packages were just in the community center. The only time it was kind of embarrassing was like I ordered like 96 cans of this drink and it was like super heavy, and the guy's like, you okay? But yeah, it was super easy. Like I just picked it up at the community center and I had it right there, and yeah, so that's also a great way to do is to just ship stuff directly to the dorm.
Cool. So what is your favorite thing about living in the Midwest and attending college in Michigan?
I think something specific to Ann Arbor in general for me was that, like, yeah, University of Michigan is a huge public university and stuff like that, but it's also like a tiny city in itself, in a sense. So, like, you can go down State Street and then it like blends to Main Street, and there's so many things to explore and that sort of thing. So it feels big, but it's also at the same time just really cool to be walking around and like enjoying that sort of city vibe, but also not getting lost. I don't know. It was just a great, great feeling to get all of that. And I love New York. And like I said, I'm in Washington, D.C. So that city feeling is my favorite. So I did enjoy that.
I'm gonna piggyback off of that, Iman. I'm originally from a much bigger city, and there was a time when I took a walk around campus and then I looked around and I was like, am I downtown right now? And I was. So like you can walk to downtown and like for me that was wild. But it's about a mile, a little less. So I think the city of Ann Arbor, city of Ann Arbor in general is like very accessible to students, even students who don't have a car or too scared to use the buses like I am. You can walk. You can walk all the way to downtown, which for me was like such an exciting thing and a way to kind of get out of campus, see some people who didn't look like college students, and go to the farmers market, for example, or do some like shopping at like vintage stores or like go to Zingerman's, stuff like that. That is all very walkable. Yeah, so get some good walking shoes.
I think for me, it's the combination of the city feel, college town, and really like the nature that's on campus. Like the grass is so green. Like you'd think it's fake, but it's like it's totally real. And I think that it's so awesome to have like that great like natural feel to things, but then also have like a more industrialized setting. I think it's a very nice balance. So if you want to like lay out in the grass, you can, but if you want to like walk down, Main Street, you can. So I think like the nice combination of the two is really awesome.
Something that I personally really enjoy about going to school in Michigan is that it really does feel like an adventure. Like there's just like, I don't know, I think that college is such a wonderful time in your life to try out living somewhere new because worst case scenario, you get to go back home for the summer and like get your fill and then come back, whatever, or you can transfer even. But I just like it feels like such a safe time to try new things. And Michigan is just so beautiful. Like Ann Arbor is right on the Huron River. It's hilly, but not too hilly. It's still easy to go on walks. And there's just so many parks that are right off campus and everything. Like, I don't know. It's just such a fun place to be, I feel like. And I don't know, it's just such a fun time to try living somewhere completely new.
I have like a few little things that I think make Ann Arbor my favorite, like amazing apple like cider products. Like they have coffee shops that have like inventive like apple cider drinks and they're amazing. And I have been waiting to go back, just like I'm so excited to have those drinks. Um but yeah, like apple cider stuff, like way better corn and pizza in the Midwest. I am a weird person where I actually really like the cold weather and like the seasons. I was kind of freaking out on campus during the fall when I'm like, oh my God, like the trees are like changing colors. And like obviously I knew that like in the fall they change colors, but I didn't realize it was like that vibrant. I kind of thought they were all just like kind of brown. But that was like so beautiful and like yeah, that was just awesome. But honestly, I think my favorite part is like just the people. Like kind of like around LA, like you talk to a stranger and they kind of give you a weird look and like walk away. But like in Michigan, like you can just strike up a conversation with like the person next to you at like the post office or like, and especially on a college campus, that's like way more. But like I just met so many interesting people in Ann Arbor. And like one time I was waiting for the train and I met this guy who was like a third year and like we talked for like 30 minutes waiting for the train and he like gave me so much advice about like Michigan and like it was just awesome. Yeah, but like the people for sure are like my favorite.
All right. So to just wrap up here, is there any last advice you'd like to give to out-of-state students who are coming to Michigan?
All right, yes. So I feel like I'm definitely not the only one here who came knowing nobody from my school went, right? As an out-of-state student, I feel like you're often flying in solo. And the best piece of advice I ever got in terms of like finding your people is to be picky and be patient and not feel pressured to stick with the first group of people you find, which I know is an instinct that makes complete sense because you want to have a sense of community, but be picky, be patient. Not everyone is worth your time and energy. And know that you will find your people in time and to, yeah, keep looking.
I feel like I learned that it's so important to be resilient. Like the first couple weeks of school, my M card didn't work. So like I couldn't get into any buildings. In the dining hall, I'd always hold up the line because I'd like punch in my ID. And I actually think that I dealt with it pretty well. I was like, all right, this is the problem. It's got to get fixed. Like I'm gonna figure out how to fix this like now. And because I like kind of like rolled with the punches a little bit, I feel like I was able to kind of get to that period of like settling in on campus a little bit sooner. But yeah, just like being able to be like, all right, that sucked, but we're moving on, we're trying again. Like I feel like that's so important because I had so many situations where like 5 things would go wrong in a row. And I was like, all right, we're just gonna go into this new situation, like it's gonna be fine. And then that situation like made up for all the other ones. So yeah, definitely like just being resilient because it is hard. Like you're in this new like location where you don't know anything. Like your support system is probably like very much changed. And like just reminding yourself that like it will be okay, I think is really important.
I think the biggest advice I could probably give, and it's kind of connected to Emma, in the sense that it is sometimes okay to be alone. You know, it's like, of course, like we're all going to be going into this independent. Of course, we were independent, you know, before, but now it's like, you know, you're by yourself, but it is totally okay to be walking by yourself. I think the first time I got on campus, I got a cup of coffee and I sat down. I'm like, wow, I'm actually drinking coffee alone. This is a weird feeling, but it is okay, you know, and you get used to like just going around and enjoying that. And again, picky and patient, I love that because you do find people easier once you're not scared to be alone in that sense. You find people that you actually do enjoy being with and having time with. So that's, yeah, definitely kind of connecting there.
I think another thing as well that kind of, culminates with everything that everyone has said is it's okay to not have all the answers and to not feel comfortable in every situation. And I think that admitting that is really important. Not trying to like cover it up or try to convince yourself that you aren't, or that you should be feeling a different way, because chances are there is someone else that is feeling the same way, and you won't know until you share it with someone. And also like just the resources on campus and everything, there's always someone there that's wanting to help you, and chances are that someone is in a similar situation and they can help you through it as well.
I think the biggest advice I can give is just to feel like you have the freedom to make mistakes, especially during your freshman year. You're not going to get everything right. And there are going to be a lot of things that you're just going to have to struggle and figure it out as you go along. And even if it doesn't happen in the first week, the second week, the first month, your first semester, it will get better and you will eventually find your footing. And so just don't be afraid to make mistakes, because every mistake you do make is a lesson learned for the future.
I think a piece of advice that I would give, besides all of the amazing advice that you guys have already said, I totally agree with all of it, is that like part of the transition process is oftentimes finding yourself in a slump. Like when you get like to like the second month of school or whatever, like when the newness wears off and reality sets in, that can be hard. And I don't know, I would like to tell you that that's normal and okay, and that's a part of the whole experience. Don't sit alone in your dorm room and suffer through that alone. Be honest with other people, and use that as a motivation to turn outwards, and to find community and to go to events, rather than a reason to turn inwards and just like be alone in your dorm. Just kind of taking it day by day, taking the small steps to like going, like talking to one new person or whatever can really make a lot of difference in that.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for your responses. Thank you to everyone who came to this webinar. This webinar will be posted on the Getting to Know Michigan webinar website if you'd like to reference it later. And everybody take care. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you to our panelists for sharing your experiences. Yay, go blue.